Hello, welcome to the WOC Inspire Her stories by women like you, where women share their stories and their business journey to inspire other females to follow their ambitions and their purpose. I am Katiria Soliman, and I will be your host today. Our guest speaker is an award-winning international business mindset and transformational coach. She is certified in mindfulness and the conscious business. She is also the international best-selling author of The Fearless Entrepreneur. Break through the corporate mindset and start your dream business. She is also the creator of the Mindful Planner, Hack Your Day for Productivity, and she is also the associate producer of Deepak Chopra's The Mindfulness Movement film. Clarisa Romero. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Katiria. Thank you so much to WOC for having me participate in this series. I'm so excited to be here.
We're so glad to have you here. So I actually finally read your book. I've been meaning to do so for quite some time, so I'm so glad I got my hands on a copy, which I also have with me here today. We'll talk more about it throughout the conversation.
Yes.
And I had no idea that you were born in Puerto Rico.
Yes. I'm actually from the small island of Puerto Rico, and I came to the States when I was 8. But a lot of people don't know until they catch the accent, and then they're like, "Ay, where are you from?"
So tell us, how exactly did you get to where you are today? Because your story is so inspiring to so many women and men, but women, right? we're going to focus on women today.
Yes, absolutely.
So what got you there? Tell us what a young Clarisa was like, what your ambitions were as a little girl, and to tell us everything you've accomplished, because you have accomplished significantly a lot.
Sure, thank you. So, well, I have a background in education. So I started my just to fast forward, because I know that we don't have a lot of time.
Yes.
So I started my journey in education and psychology.
Okay.
And when I graduated from college, I really had my heart set on being a psychologist. So I went on to nonprofit, and I was working under the leadership of a clinical psychologist, in fact. And I was loving that job, but life is life. And as I scaled different positions within the organization and became the director of development and outreach, at the time we had like a new gubernatorial administration, and I got recruited to go into government.
So they pulled you out.
And so I got sucked into the government, and I actually worked for 2 different administrations. And towards the end of that journey, coincidentally, now I understand, synchronistically, and more like a divine direction, but I did not see that then. I went through a series of traumatic events, all within 9 months. So the governor at the time lost. My father is battling cancer. I'm going through a divorce. So lo and behold, it all happened in 9 months. He loses. I am now unemployed. My father passes. I get divorced, and I lose my house. And I'm in garbage bags, sleeping in my mom's couch.
Oh my gosh.
And so that started a whole, a whole journey of finding myself, right? Because I often speak, and I talk about it in the book. I felt like I lost. Sometimes we think that our jobs or the roles that we hold are our identity, right? And I did not. When you're young, you don't realize that that's not who you are. But that's who I thought I was. So when I lost all of that, I felt like I didn't know who I was, and so I went into a deep depression. And I've spoken at some events about when I really started voicing that I had been suicidal, which was something that I would not talk about before. But then I came out and I admitted that. And when I hit rock bottom, I had hit real bottom. Yeah. And so in trying to, 2 years in a rut, completely, in the dark, trying to come out of it. Eventually, when I did, through meeting with some friends, through some freelancing with the statewide Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, when I said, okay, I really get a grip here and get my life back in place and find where am I pivoting, how am I reinventing myself, everyone was like, oh my God, like with all your background, you should go into like, we know about this opportunity at this lobbying firm and this PR. And I went into that as I was trying to get myself and glue myself together. And so that's how I ended up doing that type of work. But I hated it.
What was your actual aha moment where you took a step back, right? Because you had a lot going on during this time. Obviously, you experienced loss of a loved one. You were going through marital issues.
Right.
You were rock bottom. And you use the term in a rut, which you use a lot. You use that term a lot in your book. You use it in a lot of your speaking engagements. What was that like? Because in a rut could mean so many things to so many different people, right? So to our listeners,
in different phases of our lives.
Exactly.
So which is what happened to me. I've been in the rut in different phases. But the big pivotal moment, my big aha was that when I realized, I was like, wow, in trying to reinvent myself and find myself, I end up at this place that seems logical, and yet I am so unhappy. Why? And so that led to a whole host of self-empowerment and research and learning and digging deep. And one day, I was listening to a person being interviewed on TV, and this person said, ironically, if you feel like your life is in a rut, you hate your job and like everything, it was everything.
She was speaking to you.
Yeah, it was speaking to me, and you feel like life sucks, and you just can't get out of that rut. What will it take for it to be different? And then this individual was talking about, does life happen to you? Or can you consciously create your life? And that was my biggest aha moment, because it was like, when sometimes in a movie or something, the music stops, everything gets silent. And that's how it was for me. As I was getting ready, I stopped doing everything that I was doing, and I got really present. I was like, wait, what do you mean? Life is life. And I often speak about this. Up to that point, literally, I thought life was just life. And you roll with the punches, and you deal with it, and you just keep on moving, very robotic, like Groundhog's Day.
Of course.
Day after day, the same
thing,
things,
same people.
You repeat, same people, same path. And after that was the pivotal moment where everything changed for me. Because after that, every day, at that time, I was practicing mindfulness. I was practicing a lot of different contemplative practices. And what I started doing was tuning in and saying, okay, well, what will it take for it to be different?
What can you tell me about fear? Right, because I feel like fear, and you
exactly
mentioned that in your book too. You mentioned it in your book, but it's interesting how your perception of fear is different from what I'm pretty sure our listeners interpret it as, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, we all hear fear, especially right in this day and age that we're living. People are afraid of getting COVID, going out, different things. But what I realized in that journey of discovering how things could be different was that fear up to that point. Well, that all my decisions and that everything that I was experiencing was being defined by fear, and fear was paralyzing me, and it was keeping me stuck. And that's when I really started learning the brain science behind mindfulness. And I started understanding that in order to change my circumstances, I needed to learn how to live with fear, because we can't get rid of fear. So, none of us, that fear is part of our human experience. As long as we're in this 3D experience, we're going to experience fear. But when we let it paralyze us, a lot of people think that they need to get rid of fear. And that's where where they go wrong. And that's where I was going wrong. Yeah. So in the beginning, I wanted to push it away. I didn't want to be afraid anymore. Yeah. And so that's why when I was working with my publishers, they're like, "Oh my God, we got the title for your book. It didn't get named until after the end." They were like, "You're the fearless entrepreneur." This is because you talk about managing it, not that it's gonna go away. It's not that you're fearless. You never experience fear.
So is that where the title came from?
That's where the title came from, because I realized that in order to pivot, in order to consciously create, in order to get out of that rut that I was in, I needed to learn how to manage fear and learn to live with it and let it fuel me instead of being paralyzed by it.
Right. So what would your message be to our female listeners that are feeling that right now, right? Because we have some viewers and some listeners who are tuning in, and it's really the one obstacle that's keeping them from starting their own business or from changing their career, because it can be applied to so many different things.
Yes.
That's the beauty of your book, by the way. I just love it. What you have here is essentially a blueprint to how to rewire your brain. Really, that's really what you've created here. And it can be applied to anyone, not just someone who actually wants to open up their business. You know what I mean?
It applies to every aspect of life.
It can apply to every aspect of life. Yeah.
It's true. I get that all the time. And that's exactly how when I wrote it or channeled it, because we talked about that off camera. Yeah. Basically, this book birthed itself the way it wanted to, not the way that I wanted it, which is how it should be, right? Because then it's of service to others. So my message to women, my goodness, it's like this could be so empowering when we realize that, that these cliche terms that we think sometimes are so cliche. Oh, you have the power to do anything you want. And it sounds like nice, but you really do. You really do. But it takes work. But, the book is available for any woman that wants and has the desire to learn what are those tools, what's the way, what's the method, what's that blueprint, how did you do it, how can I do it? So my message to women out there is that we truly do have this power within us if we want. Yeah, if we want and if we seek, because it's also not about one thing. I wanted to highlight that. Sometimes people think, oh, you're Mrs. Mindfulness and you speak a lot about mindfulness, so that's the solution. No, it's mindfulness and a host of all other things that we often speak about that I do, that you have to do, that we all have to do as part of this fast-paced society that we live in. We have to do this in order to get out of that rut, in order to get unstuck, in order to manage fear and live differently.
What are some of the things that people said to you couldn't do? Because I do firmly believe that behind every successful woman, that push or that motivation that got her there was always someone who said, you can't do that. Are you crazy? You can't do that by yourself. You've clearly done a lot. You've accomplished a whole lot. And so,
well, that all happened. I ironically,
what were some of those things you were hearing? Or
when I think about that, the biggest obstacle to me prior to the achievements was me getting out of my own way. That's the irony. We don't realize how much our unconscious programming, our unconscious thoughts stop us. So my biggest obstacle was me and that programming that we don't realize that, yes, we've gotten from our relatives and our family and our lineages, but Genetics. It's so unconscious that until you start bringing that awareness, you don't realize, oh my goodness, really? That's what I think
so you're
about
saying
myself?
You were your own.
I was my biggest.
You were the voice.
I was that
you
voice.
Were that little chatter voice that
was
you
a
speak
bully.
of. You were the bully.
It was a bully. It was a real nasty bully. I would say the nastiest things to myself. And I often speak two things. I have to say, I'm very lucky that my fiance is like my biggest cheerleader. He would get so upset with me when someone would say, how do you rate yourself? And I would be like, I'm 1 or 2. He would be like, what? 1 or 2? What do you mean? You have all these connections. You have all this knowledge. You have all this training. You have all of it. And I wouldn't see it. I was so blinded by just hating myself and my depression. And I just couldn't get past that. So that was my biggest obstacle. But interesting also, just today as is the anniversary of my book and a couple of other things that I launched, I remember that when I first started on this journey, some people would say, oh, that's great. You're helping yourself with mindfulness and emotional intelligence. You're doing all of this, but you can't make a living doing that. And when I would do a project at a school, they're like, oh, that's great, but that's like a side hustle, so what are you going to do for a real job? And I was like, this. I'm going to help others. I'm going to empower. What? And now they see me. And so I'm glad that I didn't listen to. But by that point.
I'm glad you didn't listen to.
So all those women that are out there, if you have something you're passionate about, go for it, because that means that it's calling you. That's what I learned. I learn and I talk a lot about entrepreneurship from the inside out. And I'm glad that I started aligning and allowing life to show me what it needed from me, how to be of service to others, and how to turn what had happened to me, the traumas, the pain, how to turn it into medicine for others.
And I love how you've done that with your website too. Your website, when you speak of your intro of who you are, you say, today I am a...
Yes.
And then you go on and say all of your accomplishments. Where usually when we write our story, what's our first thing that we write? If you've gone through experiences like the ones that you've experienced, the whole victim mentality thing that you speak of too, which is like, the taboo. We don't speak of those things. And a lot of people start off their story with, I'm a victim of, or
Exactly.
and it's not. I don't think it's bad to do that because unfortunately, sometimes we're taught to do that, right? Like you say,
unconsciously, absolutely.
and you kind of deviate from that.
And I had to also learn, like you not from an egocentric standpoint, but you have to love yourself. That self-love has to be there, and you have to be proud of yourself.
Exactly.
And not that you start thinking of yourself as better than other people. No, absolutely not. But you have to cheer yourself. And I had to learn to toot my own horn. I had to learn to love myself, to encourage and say, good for you. You were doing a good job. Yes. But all of that had to be learned.
Of course. And it's essentially, it's not like you're reinventing the wheel here either. A lot of this is very ancient.
Yes. It's ancient knowledge that sometimes, especially in our culture, we're not to attune with, and definitely not in my family.
Does anyone read books anymore? Am I the only one that actually...
I know. I love hard copies.
I was like last night I was like, Miranda.
I love holding a book. I know, but most people now are like, and nothing against Kindle. That's great. But I like to write notes. I'm very old-fashioned.
I like to take notes when I write books. I like to smell the pages. Yes. I like to feel them.
Well, we're in the same boat.
So I wanted to ask you, because I see you named your fictional character. You're speaking in third person, right? So your person, Miranda. I love the name. Was Miranda like a childhood imaginary friend you had, or is it like a doll or something you had?
Well, that's interesting, and no one had ever asked me that. Definitely not in any interview. But so of course Miranda is like meant to be like all those women that connect with my story, and I'm speaking to them. But when I and several clients, however, the name is not the real name of the person that was. It's the name of my niece.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so when I was launching the book, it was her first birthday. And so I was like, from now on, when I'm speaking from the heart to that woman that's going to connect with me, it's going to be Miranda.
So you've left her this blueprint for her.
Yes,
life.
That's my
that's
and
beautiful.
She's my little life, actually.
That's beautiful.
Say that. So
that's beautiful.
My little inspiration.
I love that.
As I was channeling this book, and I just had this name, and the name just filled me with so much love. And I think that it just open the fountain of like what more needs to be said, what else,
because you're speaking what else to her needed. You feel like you're speaking to her, right? That's beautiful. I love that. So with all of our listeners today and our viewers too, because we do have some viewers, what is the one takeaway, or what's the message that you have for them, for that person that's listening right now and they're like, that's me with everything, I'm sure everyone can relate to something. Said thus far,
well,
right?
and it's interesting because I know that we're living in a time with everything that's going on in our society where a lot of people are like losing their jobs. They have to pivot. They have to reinvent themselves. And my message, whether you're a man or a woman, right, during these times, you have the power, but not only do you have the power, allow what opportunity. If you're losing your job, then maybe the universe is telling you it's time to reinvent yourself. It's that there's something better for you. Sometimes we get so stuck on the negative.
Stuck in the
right?
rut. We're stuck in the rut.
And then it activates the emotional brain, and then you'll be further, so you can't move from there. So my message is everything's always an opportunity. Out of every bad circumstance, trust me, I have plenty, something positive is going to come out of it if you allow for it to birth itself, to present itself. So sometimes huge opportunities are knocking on your door, but because we're stuck on the negative, we're not seeing that opportunity. So allow that to come through. Know that, the storm, which is also why there's, like I open with a quote in my book, because I felt during all those times that I didn't understand how to help myself, I felt like I was in the middle of a hurricane and I couldn't get out. And I was just getting hit by the wind. And today I feel so empowered because I have all these tools that I use. And so now I don't try to hold on to, okay, so if something's asking me to pivot, I'm like, okay, I embrace it. Or, okay, so something better's coming. Yeah. And so just believe in yourself and believe that God, universe, whatever you connect with will always have your back, even in the darkest times.
What are some of the programs you currently have right now? that are relevant to, because I know you have several
Absolutely.
workshops.
I'm actually excited. The website that you actually saw, I haven't even announced. It's a new website that's getting launched this week. Or I guess I'm going to make it official next week. But
so we won't be sharing that today, right? No, okay.
So no, it's live. It's live.
Okay.
I just haven't made an announcement yet.
Okay.
But the beauty of it is that it has a whole section of free resources, and one of the free resources is the book. I'm actually I changed the folks that I was working with on marketing, and I said for my birthday and for the birthday of the book, moving forward, this book is a gift. It's a gift for anyone that wants the tools. So they can go to the website, Mindful Consultants. Don't forget the S, Mindful, and then one L, mindfulconsultants.com, and then you'll see free resources. And a free resource that's not there, but that I'm actually doing with Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey is an 8-week course. It's all free. If you want to train, it's free.
It's free, ladies. It's 8
weeks. We're in starting Monday. Module 3 will be launching, but you'll be able to see 1 and 2, and then 3.
So they can still obtain 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's on demand, so you can access it as many times. Which ideally, because we talked, new habits take time. So the more that you do it, the more that you practice. They're bite-sized, they're short, concise.
Which is perfect.
They're meant that way, because that's, we have a short attention span. We're all busy.
Yeah.
But that's a free resource. So it's Train Your Mind for Resilience and Well-Being. That's totally free. And actually, that's step 1 of my 4-step brain hack. We got to start there. In order to be successful, a successful entrepreneur, in order to find your calling, in order to define your dream business, it starts with training your attention, training your mind, starting that path of reprogramming. And so that 8-week course that is being brought to people for free, it's where it all starts.
Women can benefit from that. Yeah. That would be fantastic.
So there's tons of other things that for anyone that wants to deepen, then there's a section where you can connect with me to find out what else does the Fearless Entrepreneur Programming have, because I do work with in privately and in the group setting with women that are ready to really scale up or to really plunge and say, okay, I'm ready. And so there's an application.
How can they reach you? Can they contact you?
So they can
the website?
Mindful Consultants. Everything's there. So if you feel if you feel called that to say, oh, I'm ready, like I want more, then that section is there. You can book a call, and then we can chat to see. Well, first there's an application to see if we're a fit at the moment. But like I said, there's tons of free resources there where people can start.
I went on your website.
So actually you saw, yes.
Yeah, it looks great. Great job.
Excellent.
And I think I saw a picture of you somewhere where it's your silhouette in the back with a cape. I love that. And I didn't realize until I zoomed in and I was like, oh my gosh. So it's the cover of the book.
Yeah.
But you're in front of it, and there's like a
that was
step
the
and repeat behind.
Yes. That was the sign.
That should be your logo.
That's actually a free master. I know. People love
that.
Logo.
I love it.
Oh,
and then your dress had like a little pink cape on
it,
sort of.
That was.
So it really.
Actually, that dress was actually for
I love that.
the cover of a magazine that I did with one of the women
from
Biz Republic with Haiti. Yes, we have the magazine. That's the same dress. That's like one of the pictures for the cover. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, your cape is in the back.
Like, is she wearing a cape? Lent itself, and the book was not even in.
So that happened by accident?
By accident.
No, I don't believe you.
Then again, nothing's accidental.
I don't believe you. I thought that you.
No, that was not planned. That's
I have
the
to
irony
look for it
in
to show it to the girls. They're gonna laugh because it really looks like you planned that out.
Planned that. Nope.
Or it was edited. It looks edited. So that wasn't edited.
No, we just placed it like that. We had that one image and then the one and they just went together, and it was accidental actually, and then it just became the poster for the masterclass.
I have to pull that up now and show it to everyone because it really does look like you photoshopped it. So now I think even more that should be your official logo.
I know that.
And that cut out.
And that's what I say. If you allow things, they birth themselves. We just sometimes want to structure everything just instead of aligning with things.
Yeah, and you're bursting with energy. You're glowing. You look beautiful.
Thank you.
You're just radiating positive.
I think one of our last conversations, we talked about that. Like one of my goals when I was stuck in a rut, right, was, man, one day will I be able to like spring out of bed and say, I love what I do. Yes, I'm ready to start my day, because that was like not how I started my days. And now that's how it is. And I'm like, whoa, it became reality. Like I love what I do.
We also manifested it into the universe,
absolutely.
Right?
I allowed it,
which you speak about
to
a lot
come
too.
in. Yes.
So to our listeners and our viewers, if you tune into her website, her work, her book, she speaks a lot about neuroscience and the brain and how to rewire everything and just how to manifest things, which I absolutely love. It. So that's a whole other. We can have a whole other 2-hour conversation.
I know.
We're gonna have to edit, come back. Well, thank you so much, Clarisa. You have inspired me once again. Every time I see you, you're a true inspiration. And I'm pretty sure you've inspired the ladies that are tuning in today to view us or to hear us. Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, for giving us this opportunity today to have Clarisa and for being the presenting sponsor for the Hudson County Chamber of Commerce. We hope to see you on our next podcast, to see you, or we hope you can tune in to hear us if you can't see us.
Thank you.
Thank you.